The
Right.
breaking point for me, so our co-op, which is now a member of the Federation for the first time in over, I think, a decade, because C4 was a member, and when they joined, we agreed. I abstained from the vote, but we had a vote to stay in membership, and I said I'll abstain. I don't want to, push this issue now, but we'll be back to this next year. So we voted to join the Federation once again. We sent 2 people to the Federation this year, and my understanding is people were surprised to see us. It had been a while since Tech Collective. We sent one woman from Tech Collective and one woman from C4, so who had been a member of the Federation before. So I think there was maybe a little bit of interest around that. My last interaction with, I guess you could call it the Federation, is at the Eastern Conference for Workplace Democracy in 2017, maybe. Yeah. In Worcester, Massachusetts. I went there, and as I sat in their convention hall and leafed through the convention guide, the printed guide for what's going on at the convention, I noticed something that was kind of bothering me. I noticed that over 75% of the seminars were being run by people who don't work at worker cooperatives, technical specialists, outsiders, etc. And then later I was having a conversation with someone who I'm not going to name, whose recent success at converting the largest worker cooperative in, I think it's the largest worker cooperative conversion of all time, but it's definitely the largest in the state of Maine where it is. This person had helped convert from 3 capitalist businesses to one single worker co-op, had spent years doing it. And I mentioned to them this kind of question I'd had: why are all these, technical specialists running the show? And we were talking about it, and they said, well, that's why I don't bring anyone down from this cooperative in Maine. And I said, what do you mean? And they said, well, they just wouldn't understand any of this. They're living day to day through worker cooperative ownership. They're largely uneducated. They're all basically poor white folk from Maine who live on an island. They're currently still getting a handle on, how to run a business, how to do things democratically. And all this talk that we have about oppression dynamics and about, I'm not even going to disparage too much. Just go look at any Federation conference plenary, and it's the vast majority does not relate to operating a business. It relates to intersectional social and power structures that are very important, but are not the core issue. The core issue is running a fucking business as a worker cooperative. And most of these plenaries, I don't want to read a textbook on proto-feminist Marxist ideology just to be able to get some ideas on how to, balance my QuickBooks or something. That doesn't appeal to me. Yeah. Now, I say this as an anarcho-communist. I have the same interests in those things. I'm very invested in uprooting and overthrowing white supremacy and oppressive power dynamics in all aspects of life. Does that mean that's what I want when I go to a conference? No. Is that what regular people want? My answer is no. I think that the Federation as a whole has done what all nonprofit grant cycle funded orgs have done in the past 20 or 30 years, has moved on to this entirely separate ideology that only serves to kind of fulfill what I consider as sidelong achievements. Not sidelong in the grand scale, but sidelong in terms of creating a cooperative economy. And I think you can see that very clearly by the lack of working class white people in the Federation's membership, as well as at any cooperatives, period. Yes, tons of white people, almost all of them educated from college backgrounds, tons of people of color, many of them working class. But the reality is that there are more working class white people in the United States than the entire population of African Americans, the entire population. So when we are doing what all leftists do and infight and focus on secondary issues and forget that there is this core issue of overthrowing capitalism that is pushing the cooperative movement forward, we become disconnected from, I think, a realistic chance of succeeding. And for me, I spend a lot of time with white people who are not progressive, and they don't understand any of this. But if you explain what a cooperative is, if you talk to them about the day-to-day, they don't get threatened. It doesn't undo their, strict father morality. It doesn't make them think it's communism. They don't see it that way. And in my opinion, we are missing out on a major revolutionary body that is just completely obscured as part of the larger strategy. And that's only one half of my criticism of the Federation as a whole, is that they have fallen prey to the same kind of progressive trap that we all fall into, which is, let's try to fix everything and let's do it in such a way that it obscures the actual people out there that would directly benefit from this and help us further our own movement. You can go and try to transform all the urban areas you want. The reality is there is this mass of people that are, for whatever it's worth, are working class white folk who live in the Midwest and in rural areas that have no idea what this is. And those are the people who get people like Trump elected. Those are the people who are constantly fighting against their own interests, who are breaking with unions, which are like 3% of the public sector or private sector now. And to me, we're missing those people. They could be part of this movement, and they're not. And our focus has been, I believe you can still focus on the other things, but it has to be more balanced. And so again, I think we need a different approach when it comes to the movement in the long run. And that's only half of it. The other half of it, I can't state this any better than the article that was, hilariously posted after I wrote this by Rebecca Campbell, about how basically the Federation has fallen prey to this classic power dynamic, which she doesn't directly say it's because of the executive director and their relationship to the board, but that's absolutely what this is about. I can't speak intelligently on the internal politics of the Federation because I have been outside of it for too long. But reading her piece on Geo, which is a godsend, I really appreciate that you guys exist and that this kind of work is coming out of here. She is one of my heroes. She's been doing work for years, just on the side. She's just on the side, just doing her thing. And meanwhile, building some of the best cooperative movements we have in the Madison area and also on a national stage with this kind of thinking. And I urge anyone listening to this to go and read or listen to Rebecca's piece from August 19th, 2024, about how the US Federation itself has basically changed to from a member supported body to a nonprofit supported body, and that they did this for many reasons, but that over time it's gotten pretty far from its initial goal. And I could not agree more. I think she says that better than I ever could. And she does touch a little bit on what I believe I just said about how we've kind of lost focus because we've started to laser focus on what all leftist and nonprofit groups are focused on right now, which is intersectional oppression dynamics. And those are important things, but they're also kind of distracting when they're the dominant thing you have at a Federation conference, which is nominally about worker cooperatives and being a worker and being part of a solidarity movement of workers. I didn't look at the plenary for this year, but I looked at last year's Federation plenary, and it is exactly what I would expect.